So sample type matters for genetic testing of DNA mutation. You might be asked to get a blood draw, or maybe a buccal swab or saliva sample is okay. And sometimes for cancer patients, a tumor biopsy is taken. The doctor says it's also to be sent for genetic testing. Why there are all these different sample types and why it matters. Hello, I'm Xiaoyu. I'm a board-certified clinical laboratory geneticist. Here on my channel, I share all things fascinating under the broad topic of genetics. If you find it interesting, please subscribe. And today I'm going to talk about why sample type matters for genetic testing, using just one particular aspect from a lab testing perspective. And this particular aspect is the hide and seek game between DNA mutation and genetic testing. This game, we can say it can be played in three major scenarios. Scenario number one is, I know you are everywhere. Scenario number two is, I know you are somewhere. Well, scenario number three is, I know where you are. So for the first scenario, when we say, I know you are everywhere, we're describing DNA mutation that's present in every cell of an individual. These mutations can be passed down to the next generation. In some cases, they are inherited from a parent of the individual. In other cases, they occurred de novo. This is when the parent had an error during gametogenesis. So that might produce a sperm with point mutation. It can also produce an egg with the wrong number of chromosomes. So these errors will then be passed down through conception to the child. And they will be present through cell division into every cell of the individual. So because the DNA mutation is present in every cell of the individual, most sample type would work out for genetic testing. Peripheral blood is usually considered the gold standard for genetic testing, and this is the sample type used by many clinical grade genetic testing lab. However, getting a blood draw can be scary for a lot of people. So alternatively, there can be buccal swab taken or saliva taken, and there are self-collection kits that you might use. And these are the sample types that's accepted by a lot of the direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies. So the key here is whichever sample types that's taken, the sample needs to produce enough amount of DNA with good quality for genetic testing. So that's our first scenario. I know you're everywhere. The second scenario is, I know you are somewhere. However, I don't know exactly where you are. So in the first scenario, we talked about an error can be present since the moment of conception. In the meantime, in some individuals, after a few rounds of cell division, some cells might be able to correct their error. So as a consequence, this mutation will only be present in some cells of the individual later on in life. It could also happen in such a way that there was no DNA mutation at the moment of conception. However, in the first few rounds of division, an error occurred in one of the cells. And all the daughter cells from this cell will then carry mutation throughout the life of the individual. So in these cases, we say that the mutation is present at a mosaic state, or it's called mosaicism. Mosaicism is a fascinating phenomenon, but for genetic testing, this is very tough because we don't know exactly where it is in the individual's body, even though the individual might have symptoms that strongly indicate a genetic disorder. Usually the way to go is to test as many sample types as you can without being too invasive. Skin biopsy is often necessary, and these individuals sometimes might have pigmentation pattern on their skin, further indicating mosaicism. To increase the chance of mutation detection, a biopsy will be taken from the light area of the skin, and another biopsy will be taken from dark area of the skin. With experience, we know that there are certain kind of genetic diseases where the mutation detection rate using skin biopsy is very high. However, for the most part, it is largely unknown whether it can be detected. So that is the second scenario where we say, I know where you are, but I don't know exactly where. Now it comes to our third scenario, which is, I know where you are. Here, we're talking about DNA mutations that are acquired in a certain tissue type later in life. And this is often what happens with cancer. And the key here is to ensure that the sample that will be tested contains cancer cells. A tumor biopsy might be taken. Additional steps might be taken to further separate cancer cells from surrounding normal cells. So we get a sample that's as pure of cancer cells as possible that goes in genetic testing. This increases our chance to detect key mutations that helps with diagnosis and that help guide treatment. So that's it for today. We talked about different sample types and why sample type matters depending on what DNA mutation you're trying to detect. If you find it interesting, useful, please click like and subscribe. Remember, the world is beautiful because we are different, and I love you to every single base pair.